one of the young ANC MPs as well, Fasiha Hassan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thanks for having us.
My absolute pleasure. Jazakallah for taking the time to talk to us as well. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. We've had so many talks about the GNU. We've had local and international as well. I want to bring it a bit closer to home as well. The government of national unity can only be a step in the right direction. However, there are people that feel that this may be a bit too presumptuous for a government to go into partnership this early. What are your thoughts?
Look, I don't think it's too presumptuous. We have to create a stable government that is able to provide services to the millions of our people. But it's also an important step in our political history and in our political process. It's not an easy one, but it's also an opportunity for us as elected representatives really to rise and to step up and to say to South African society, we've heard you. It's a bit of a mixed masala that you've created, but it's also our job to find a way to make it work. And actually, I think that's a good thing.
There's also been a lot of talk from the president about, especially when it comes to our kiddos and ensuring their safety, ensuring that they're taken care of as well. We've had Hanif Hendricks chat to us a bit earlier, who's the Deputy of Social Development as well. Massive role that, massive shoes that he's need to fill as well in order to ensure that our kiddos are taken care of, but more importantly, our senior citizens in the same process. Because if you look at it, a lot of our communities are taking care of senior citizens, our kiddos, because moms and dads are no longer there. What are some of the efforts that you're hoping that social development can put into play and that you've noticed that can make a difference?
Look, there's a big conversation on what we're calling the universal basic income, which is actually fundamental to ensuring that we can bridge that gap in terms of poverty alleviation. But remember, and it's important for us to always say this, grants are meant to be a temporary measure. We don't want people to be dependent on a grant their entire lives. It's if you lose a job, if something doesn't necessarily go the way we want it. But we need to, as a state, create that social net. And you've described some of it in terms of children, in terms of the elderly, but it goes beyond that. Sometimes life just doesn't deal you the right set of cards. And you want to know that your state is looking after you in some shape or form. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think not even just in terms of social development, we're seeing, I think, really a moment, and the President spoke to this in tonight's address, of really rising to that occasion, of saying whether it's about climate justice, whether it's about social development, whether it's about crime, corruption, now is a critical moment in South African history. 30 years on, we're in a very historic place, and perhaps that's apt in terms of us saying this is what the next 30 years are going to look like. So it's there in social development, but we want to see that change across the board. And one thing I must say, youth unemployment is a critically important issue going forward, especially for the constituency I represent. And so we're going to put a lot of pressure on this GNU, even as a member of the ANC, so that we can have some tangible outcomes for young people.
Auspicious day, Mandela Day, not just for South Africans, but for the rest of the world as well. As a young MP, as a young person as well, what does the legacy of Tata Madiba mean to you?
In fact, as we were exiting City Hall, I don't know if our listeners at home saw, literally the corridors of Parliament rang with his name. MPs and the like singing about Mandela 30 years later, and in the very spot where I think it was actually over 30 years ago, after being released from prison, came here to address thousands of people. And like I said, it's almost coming full circle. Someone like myself, born post-democracy, one has goosebumps thinking about it, because it's almost as if the baton is being handed over. The spirit of Tata Madiba almost saying to us, you have a role to play, and not just that, you need to rise above, because the over 60 million South Africans need to have a better life.
Keep fighting the good fight. Shukran so much for affording us your time. All the very best.
Shukran, thank you very much.